Loneliness is like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 1 out of every 2 adults is lonely. So how do we bring the we back into technology? How do we really build a better society and use technology for social good? This is probably the biggest disruption that has ever happened in education.
Yeah.
I think it's going to devalue social media because people really want to talk to humans. And the more that the bots get on there, and people aren't going to want to hang out at there anymore. When social media first sort of came out, it really was about community. And now really the focus is on videos and influencing, right? It's all about the individual and the influencer. Like, what are you going to teach when social media isn't a thing anymore?
Welcome, Nancy. Thank you for coming on the show. Really excited for our conversation. Why don't you give a quick intro for the listeners to know who you are and what you do?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Dr. Nancy Richmond. I'm a professor at Florida International University. I teach for the College of Business. My specialty area is social media as well as personal branding, social skills, and I'm very passionate about creating happiness in communities.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I mean, maybe starting right off the bat with the first question around social media and around, it feels like or they say that we're the most connected than ever with social media, connects all of the people who have all of these social media platforms. And at the same time, the science keep proving us that we have the loneliness epidemic, the anxiety that's probably being mainly caused by social media platforms, and I'm sure there are other factors, but that's a big contributor. So there's a contradiction here. Why is that happening?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I've been teaching social media since the start of social media. So for almost 20 years, I've been teaching social media when Facebook still had the EDU.
Oh.
So I've been teaching it for a long time, and I've seen a lot of changes over the years. And, I taught the millennials. And now I'm teaching Gen Z. So I've seen the real shift over time. And probably about 2 years before the pandemic, I was like, what's going on? And I started to realize recently that was when Gen Z actually entered into my classroom. And I thought, wow, there's a big switch, because I used to walk into the classroom and there'd be talking. Everyone would be kind of communicating with one another. And I'd be getting my stuff ready, the projector ready, all this stuff. And then I'd tell the class, okay, it's time to quiet down. We got to start class.
Yep.
And then I started to realize that everyone was just staring at me. And I was like, why isn't anyone talking to one another? And it was really kind of awkward. And I was like, what is this? And so that was about 2 years before COVID hit. And then COVID hit, of course, and we went all online. And then things just got even worse. And so fast forward to this year, we've entered a new dynamic. And the new dynamic is, and it actually happened today because I just came from teaching today. And I walk into the room, a class full of 50 students, and they are sitting in the dark. Nobody turns the light on. They literally are on their devices in the dark. And I've talked to them about it. And I'm like, well, why, guys? Do you just find it more peaceful? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But it's really this, like, everyone's on their phones. They're not talking to each other anymore. So I've really tried in my own classrooms, trying to help young people really learn how to socialize. Like, I think this is the thing that they're missing really the most. And I'm definitely concerned about it. And one of the things I'm really concerned about is our young people, right? So by the time they get me to college, I'm like, well, why didn't they get this earlier?
Yeah.
So I have a kindergartner, and I'm starting to see that, they put her on a laptop at 5 to start taking exams on a laptop. And I think we really have to step back and really think about how young people are using technology. And I'm very pro technology. I teach social media. I love technology. I love AI. But I also think that we have to be really mindful about the social skills. And so that's why I created this Keep Shining framework that I've been working on recently. And it's really to help reconnect us with that human piece. And I really think it's important for young kids, it's important for college students, but it's also important for, grandparents, business professionals, all of us, because we really have to rethink about how we socialize and how we connect.
So you're saying that the main reason is because we almost like created the proxy for what human connection means, and we replaced it with the digital engagement, which actually didn't replace the real one at all. It just created like a representation of it that's not real. It's kind of like a fake one, and so we started to atrophy the real social skills of connecting in person, looking someone in their eyes and feeling them, like that kind of thing.
We know that if you spend too much time on social media, it does not make you feel better.
Right.
And I love social media. I think there are great purposes. It helps us connect around the world. It helps us feel connected. But there's a point when we're using it too much, right? And they say that Gen Z is using social media for about, on average, 4 to 7 hours a day. And they spend 45% of their day on social media.
Wow.
So if they're not having that one-on-one, that's when we start having that loneliness piece. And they say that adults, 1 out of every 2 adults is lonely. And loneliness is like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Like the Surgeon General says, this is huge. I mean, this is really causing a lot of anxiety. It's causing a lot of depression. And I see it. I see it firsthand. And I really worry about our young people, but I also worry about all of us, because if we're not getting that social connection that we really need, that's when things sort of start falling apart. And I think that we can see that a lot with what's going on around us in the world, right? And really the lack of community, the lack of kindness, the lack of compassion, the lack of purpose.
Yeah.
Like trying to reconnect with that human piece is so critically important. So
how do we change this? What do we do?
I think the key is, like, this is why I created the framework, because this isn't something I realized that I actually have been doing my entire life. Is really, but I didn't really have a framework for it. I just did it naturally. And when the pandemic happened, I reached out to a good friend of mine who's the founder of the World Happiness Foundation. And we ended up hosting the World Happiness Fest at FIU. We had about 1,200 people from around the globe who came, which was really a beautiful experience. And it really helped me think about like how I do things in the world. How do I show up in the world? And this is where I kind of came up with this framework. Like, and, you know, the main piece is kindness, empowerment, and purpose, and all these different pieces that are critical to, like, how do we actually show up in the world wherever we are? And I think if we have a framework to do that in, we can really do things more intentionally. And really, in everything that I do now, like when I do work, I'm like, well, does this have meaning? Like, what is this going to do? Like, what is my purpose? And so I've really redesigned my whole life around happiness, basically not chasing happiness, but finding ways to create more happiness in the world, or hopefully inspiring others.
Yeah, I definitely want to dive deeper into your framework and the topic of happiness. I wanted to say a little bit more on the current state. So you see no improvement in social skills throughout different generations. It's just been getting worse and worse and worse. Even the last one, it has no trajectory of going.
I think the millennials actually we're doing great now. In comparison to Gen Z, like, I really worry about them because they really have so much. And so and the millennials were stressed, but they were more stressed about, like, getting ahead, like doing, what am I going to do? How am I going to get ahead? Yeah. But Gen Z is stressed about being around other people. And there's actually research that shows that a lot of them won't even go out to dinner because they don't want to talk to the waiter. That they don't want to talk to anyone because it's too much anxiety to think about talking to someone. So, and that creates the loneliness and the unhappiness, right? And it's so important that we really connect with them and we help them find ways to connect, because when you do, it makes such an incredible difference.
And what is that anxiety that they will look silly, or they're not going to look good? Is somebody going to judge them? Is that the anxiety that
they just don't know how? I mean, it's really, like, think about it. It's like if you don't use a certain part of your brain, right? It basically, you can't use it anymore because you forget. It's the same thing with social skills. If you don't use them or you never develop them, then how do you do it?
That's one piece. But then let's say if I don't know how to do something, I don't necessarily get anxiety. Like when I start to do that, it's like, oh, a new thing. Let me try figuring that out. But it doesn't seem that that's the case here. Even though they forgot how to do it, they feel very anxious.
I don't know that they ever knew how to do it. That's a difference.
Right.
Like you can dig into it and revive it. It's like riding a bike. Like you might be like a little wiggly on it and like be like, I haven't done this for a while, right?
Yeah.
But if you haven't done it at all, really, then I think it becomes harder. And so the millennials really grew up with their phones, right? They grew up with their phones, but they had a time when they didn't use phones. And Gen Z has had them next to them since the time they were toddlers, right? And so they were the iPad generation. And so when they could have been socializing, they were instead on their digital devices. And so, it's literally rewired their brains. And so there's a book on the anxious generation, which many people have probably read. And when you read that, you're like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. So now I think it's a matter of just like creating opportunities. And also, I do think it's that piece of I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
It is a piece about that ties into the loneliness and the anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I'm not good enough ties into that. So finding ways to help them find purpose, helping them give back to the community, helping them find ways to socialize is so important. But that's important for all of us. It's not just important for college kids. I think that we've all kind of lost a bit of that.
Yeah, for sure. And do you think with the newer tech of like a more immersive tech like virtual reality or augmented reality where you can communicate, or like the latest Vision Pro, Apple Vision Pro update, now you have a lot more clarity when you're speaking to another person. You feel a lot more present with them. I haven't really fully experienced those types of experience, but I feel like they're bringing us a little bit closer than just a Zoom or a phone where people not even looking into the camera. You really don't feel the presence. Do you think those types of technologies could start to kind of close that big gap between real human connection and what people do now with like digital screens?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, that it's possible. I mean, anything's possible, right? I mean, it's possible, but when we think about it, really the best human connection is always going to be sitting down at the table having coffee. I mean, that's the reality. Yeah, we can get better. I mean, it's better to Zoom than to talk on the phone.
Yeah.
It's probably better to actually have these glasses on than it is via Zoom. It's better than nothing. But in the end, we still need those more organic moments where we just talk to one another like human beings, like have a real physical hug, right?
Yeah.
Like, it means something.
Yeah. Do you think the physical hug is critical, or do you think you can have meaningful connection without touching someone?
I think both. I think both are important.
Yeah.
I think that, it's the laughter. Having a good laugh. I mean, when you have a good laugh, that's just when you're really connecting with someone.
Yeah.
The smiling, the laughing, like that's the piece. And yeah, you can do that on Zoom. And yeah, you can probably do that as well with VR, but it's not quite as meaningful as when it's there in person.
Yeah. Because I see changing behavior, changing culture is like the hardest thing in developing products or something. If your product requires for someone to change the way they interact with a particular thing, you're going uphill. Like there's a lot of friction that happens, and so I feel like if we are trying to merge the gap between a real deep human connection that's meaningful, where we feel fulfilled and connected to other humans, and what we currently have, maybe the only way is to provide some kind of like technology tools to start going the other way, to have a different intention instead of optimizing for your attention for you to stay on the platform. It's more, how do we optimize for meaning, like for meaningful interactions with other humans or something like that?
I think we're at this very interesting place where, AI is, ChatGPT. People are using ChatGPT now.
Yeah.
Just for personal questions, and they're having, these relationships with ChatGPT now, right?
Exactly.
So what if ChatGPT then merged with glasses and then became like your
avatar, are you saying?
Your avatar, or, is that better than nothing? Probably, right? But then the question becomes ethics, right? And then we get into the ethics piece of it because it's still not a human. So I don't think we're good there quite yet, but who knows, maybe in the future.
Although there is a big distinction between a synthetic avatar that doesn't exist in the physical world and a clear, perfect, perfect representation of someone's presence. Let's say I'm sitting here and there's some kind of way to scan me
Yeah.
precisely, perfectly, where for you on the other side of the world, your eyes can't tell the difference if it's a real you or not. I think that would be meaningful.
Yeah. I mean, wow, that'd be so cool. I would love that. I mean, that would be amazing. I mean, I could even enter into a classroom, right? Like in Japan, and
Yeah.
they're teaching and it feels like I'm really there. So, I mean, I don't think that we're really far from that, honestly. I think that we could potentially do that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, I mean, we can connect. I mean, it is possible to connect online. I just think that we have to really balance that with the in-person too.
Yeah. And do you think a process like the fact that we're becoming less social, uh, is that could that still be a natural process of evolution?
Yeah, but it's not good if we're lonely and anxious. If we're more lonely and anxious than ever before, we're clearly doing something wrong. Like, I really am worried about society.
Mm-hmm.
And I really am worried about the lack of empathy and kindness. Like, we really have to find a way to dig back into that, back into the community and helping each other. When we're thinking about social media and how has social media changed over the years, when social media first sort of came out, it really was about community. It was about connecting with friends, right? It was like, I studied a LinkedIn group for my dissertation, and I studied faculty who were talking about teaching and learning in the classroom. And there were these amazing groups. There were like over 27,000 faculty around the world talking about how do we become better teachers. And now those LinkedIn groups don't really work anymore because LinkedIn has changed how it does. And now really the focus is on videos and influencing, right? It's all about the individual and the influencer.
Yeah.
Which is great because I love personal branding and it's great to get your voice out there. But then how do you bridge that community piece that we've kind of lost? And we know that we can do great things together. Like it's like the power of we, right? So how do we bring the we back into technology? I guess that's the piece that I think is missing is like less of the influencer and more of the we.
Mm-hmm. So what is the desirable future around social media platform or digital and real? How do you see the balance that it's healthy?
Well, I think it's become more commercial, right? And so it's all about making money now with social media. And that's a big part of it is before it was about connecting. And now it's about, the advertising dollars. And so it's really changed a lot because of that. But I think that there's room out there for thinking about how do we bring that community back? Because right now people will communicate in like WhatsApp groups via community, but that's not really social media. That's not really community either. Maybe there's a way that you could do it with, these glasses. I have no idea. I mean, that would be super cool. But of course, that becomes a barrier too with money and, like who can be part of the community because who's going to be able to afford these glasses? So and maybe as they become less expensive and that people have more access to them, it's possible.
Yeah. I definitely see a possibility, a more likely scenario where everyone, in the same way how we all have cell phones, there will be a new platform like smart glasses like you're wearing now that it's very socially acceptable and it's non-intrusive and it's not obstructive. Like you can still live your life and you have an additional layer of the digital layer that you can overlay over your reality. Wouldn't that be cool where you are in your own space and then all of a sudden now your friend is sitting on your couch and it's you guys can look at each other. You can, the only thing maybe you can't touch each other for at least for now, but you really can't tell the difference if that person was real or not. And I wonder if there will still be a delta between a real experience without touching and the fully simulated crystal clear can't tell the difference type of experience. And I've pondered on that question myself, and I would love to hear your opinion. I think there will still be a delta in those experiences, and the delta will lie in the more subtle ways of perceiving other humans, like more energetic ways of like feeling their energy, connecting on like soul to soul level. And maybe that is a natural way for us to relearn those like atrophied abilities that we've had all this time, but we just forgot how to use them.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to really think about, like, will it be just like another thing that we have to do, right? Like another piece of technology. Um, I wonder about the overstimulating our brains, right? And so in a dream, I would love to have like glasses like this,
Yeah.
and I look into my classroom and I can see every single student's name, and then I can help understand their like style that they learn. I've dreamt of this. I'm like, that would be amazing. And
Yeah.
then I could be like, okay, they're missing that assignment. They need a little extra help. Like that
Yeah.
students, they could tell me little things, right? That would be amazing. But then at the same time, when I'm on a nature walk, right? I don't want these glasses on because that's when my brain needs resting. So I think there's a delicate balance between like when it's useful and when it's too much. And I don't know as humans if we're able to turn it off. And I think that's one of the problems with the phones, right?
Yeah.
Because it becomes addictive. And then we're not able to, but our brains, I do think, need downtime. They need this quiet, mindful time in order to recharge.
Yeah.
And maybe if these technologies build in, devices that can help us with that, to help us with giving our brains time to like recharge and heal in wonderful ways. And I think that's important. That's why we need to have these conversations, because we really need to think about like the ethics behind it, but also how do we really build a better society and use technology for social good?
The way I see it, the most advanced technology is the one that's least noticeable. Where it is on the background, it is there, and it's very advanced, and it's there when we need it, but it's not intrusive. It's not in our face when we don't want it. So you can always like scale it up or down as much as you want. When you're in nature, you completely turn it off.
I don't think we're doing very good at that now.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah,
and that's what I worry about, because I don't know if humans are able to turn it off, because we have this desire to constantly be on, but our bodies don't necessarily want to be on all the time, right? And so that's the piece that I worry about a little, is like, how do we do that? I'm actually very good, because I've practiced over the years being intentional about turning it off. And I do it very purposely. And when I do, that's when I have often these big ideas happen, and like everything sort of makes sense when I turn everything off and I have time. But I don't know that everyone, especially young people, because they don't have the same ability to, be able to do that. And so, I think that's something we have to think about.
Because even now, with the emergence of AI, the way we interact with the computer is usually through either voice or type, but it's a fairly simple user interface. We don't have to interact with all kinds of like things to get information. And maybe it is a direction where there's only one interface to interact with the digital world, and it's through your personal AI system that knows what you need, what you want, what your goals are, and it like pre-filters all of the noisy input signals from the digital world and only shows you right in time pieces of information that serves you. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah. And I mean, eventually the technology should become smart enough so it knows when you need time off, right? In an ideal world, it would say, okay, now I think you need to shut it off for this amount of time. And that would be great.
So personal brand and your digital identity, how do you see in the future, what role would that play? Would that be more important in the future, or less, or about the same as today, for example?
Personal branding is something that I've been teaching and studying for quite some time. And I think it kind of has a bad connotation when we even hear the word personal brand. Like people are like, oh, personal brand. It's just kind of like, I'm not fun, not authentic. Like, what does that even mean? Like, I think that we need to kind of move away from thinking about like building your brand instead of thinking about building connections with people. And I think that when you're constantly trying to like push something out there, right, and be constantly in people's face with information, that's not real. But what people really connect on is that purposeful sort of connections and those conversations. It comes back to the conversations. And that's really how I think that social media is changing a little bit, because it used to be just like what you posted was important, but now your comments are almost as important as the information that you're posting.
Your interactions.
Yeah, your interactions are equally as important now as what it is that you're posting. So having more of those genuine connections, I think, is important. But I also think that, when we think about ourselves, like, how do you want to show up in the world? It's not really about your personal brand, but what is your purpose? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want? How do you want the world to see you?
Yeah.
And not just like in a business level, like a
Yeah.
fake level, but, you know, when I think about my own personal brand, I'm the same person at home as I am at work.
Mm-hmm.
Like the same person, you know, as a professor, like I'm always the same person. Like I show up the same no matter where I am. Like I have, that's sort of like, you know, this piece, this kindness piece, this purpose piece
Yeah.
is, you know, kind of ingrained in who I am. And I try to bring that with wherever I am.
Do you think that should be the goal for everyone?
I do. I think that you have to figure out what's most important and most valuable to you. So, you know, for me, for social media, like on Instagram, I really focus in on nature. I mean, I'm from the state of Maine and nature is very important to me. The ocean's very important to me. So when I post, I have like, I used to be like trying to chase the algorithm, trying to get more followers. I just don't care anymore, honestly. It's just like, okay, well, I'm just going to post some nice photos and videos when I feel inspired to do so, more for myself as like kind of going back in history to see in the future. And also it's just kind of a place, almost like blogging, honestly, for me, for Instagram. And LinkedIn for me is a place that I definitely do business, but you'll also see in there that I'm talking a lot about happiness and nature and sustainability. And it's sort of all mixed in there because that's who I am. It has a little bit of a different twist because of the platform, but it's the same thing. And so I think you have to kind of think about like, what's important to you and like how is it that you want to be seen in the world, and if you kind of do that, I think that it will help you succeed in wherever you are.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen to personal brands once all of these digital fake avatars, AI generated avatars start to create content, which already is happening, and people seem to not mind, they still seem to consume this type of content?
Yeah, I showed just recently, I showed some of these fake avatars and videos to my students and they were horrified. And it was funny because in the video, they were like saying that Gen Z really loves these avatars and they were horrified. They were like, this is awful. So I think there might be a misconception about how much young people really want to have fake people at them, you know? And they're definitely concerned about this. Like they really seemingly like the more authentic, like real person. And what does that mean? There's just so many ethical issues with these fake avatars and making it into somebody who they're not. Of course, it's great for businesses because you won't have problems with influencers doing things you don't want them to do. But in the end, is that who you really want to be? I think it will devalue social media. Honestly, I think it's going to devalue social media because people really want to talk to humans.
That's right, yeah.
And the more that the bots get on there and the less you can tell who's real and not real, people aren't going to want to hang out there anymore.
Yeah. The real creatives wouldn't be incentivized to post because now they have to compete with thousands of those types of fake videos, and the amount of attention is not really growing as much. Everyone is already spending all of their time. So now you have to compete with that. Yeah, I also see it's definitely going to change the way we value content, the way we value social media platforms in general. There probably is a ripe time for some new way of connecting to it instead of like social media content game. Maybe
I think I just wonder, like, I feel like something big is going to happen with AI. Like, I feel like this is the moment everything's going to shift because social media is at a place now where things are just different, and I don't think necessarily different in a great way. Like it's harder and harder to get your posts seen.
Yes.
And it's more pay to play, right? And people get on there. If it doesn't feel like a good place to be, they might not want to be there quite as much. And so I feel like this is the time where something big could happen. And people always said to me, like, what are you going to teach when social media isn't a thing anymore? It's like, I don't know, but I'm going to know what it is when it happens. And I think it's now. I think AI is what's going to happen. Like, I think AI is going to change the way we communicate with one another.
Well, I'm sure the social component will stay as long as there are humans.
Yes.
And the media will just take a different shape. And so social media will continue to exist. It will have a very different shape.
I think it will continue to exist, but I don't think it's going to be as bowing our heads into a phone. I think that's going to shift. I don't think that's going to stay forever. Like, I think we're, with voice and everything and video, and I think that there's so many different better ways than us staring into our phones while we're walking across the street, right? There's so many better ways of doing that. And I think there's a great opportunity there to create a more social, community-based sort of technology. I think it's a huge opportunity, actually.
Do you have access or visibility to emergence of kind of like minority communities of younger people who actually know how to connect and they value communal gatherings and things like that? Do you see that at all emerging or not at all?
I think that's really interesting because Florida International University, we have a huge amount of students that are Hispanic and come from first generation households. And it's like, I always feel like I'm working at the UN when I'm like teaching class, because there are literally students from maybe 10, 15, 20 different countries all in front of me. And it's really just such a cool, amazing experience. And so I do think that in the Hispanic culture, traditionally, it is more family oriented, and they, often come with big families, and, I think that's a lot more focused. So I think that that's really positive, actually. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, having a large family base around you. But I think a lot of America is less and less around their families, right? Because they've moved and stuff, and that becomes harder. And so if they don't have their families, we can create community as well for them. Yeah.
So let's talk more about your framework, the 4-pillar framework.
Yeah, it's actually longer than that, but we can hit a few of them. Yeah.
All right. So to kind of give me a note.
Yeah. So it starts with K for kindness. Because obviously we can't do anything without kindness, and kindness is really everything that I do. I think about, am I coming to this from a kind place? And I think that's in my work, that's in how I teach, that's in my life, right? And I really trying to teach my daughter that. And I really wish that we could have more of this in our school system, especially with young people, because I think if we've really pulled away from the social skills piece of it and helping young people get the compassion that they need. And so another piece of it is exploring who they are. So it's the E is exploring. And, you can't really be out there if you don't understand who you are as a person.
Yeah.
So digging deep into who am I, that piece. And then the next piece is empowering yourself, but also empowering others. So we talk a lot about empowering us, right? But how do we empower our communities? How do we empower each other? And then the P is the purpose. And, like having some kind of purpose. How do you find your purpose in life? And then it's 11 letter framework, but then then we move into serving. How are we going to serve our community? This is the S, and then happiness, and so on. So it's really about how do you dig deep into understanding yourself, but also how you're showing up as a leader and how you're creating community around you.
Yeah. And when you say kindness, pay attention, or like be more kind to other people, are there specific examples or like practices that cultivates more kindness, or is this just a concept, we need to have more kindness?
No, I mean, I think it's when I sing, it's everything that we do. Like when you're in the coffee line, like, are you talking to people around you? Are you saying thank you? I mean, it can be as simple as just getting groceries, right? And so we've really lost a lot of that. And those little interactions are actually what help us be less lonely, right? And so if 1 in 2 people are lonely, if we just have those little moments, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be as simple as just saying hello to someone.
Yeah.
And so having like little intentions of talking to strangers. See, we're taught from a very young age not to talk to strangers.
Yeah.
Like, don't talk to the stranger, right? And now we've gotten to the point where people are scared of people.
Yeah.
And like, we shouldn't be scared of each other. Like, we really need to break free of this don't talk to strangers, because we need each other. And that's the piece, the kindness piece. I grew up in Maine, so Maine's a very rural place. And I think Mainers are very, very kind people. And they talk to each other. They really help their neighbors out. And so I was really brought up with that. And so I really tried to use that in every piece of my life. But I'm also teaching my students the same thing. I just had a conversation with them about like, how can you do that? How can you talk to others? I know sometimes it's scary, but, and the thing is, once you reach out to one person with a kind act, you don't know what will become of that, right? You have no idea years later how that one interaction could impact your life.
Yeah,
So
definitely. And knowing yourself, are there any practices that you would recommend that would help people to deeper into knowing who they are?
Yeah, I think one thing is when in particular when we're talking about like happiness,
Mm-hmm.
I think that we need to be in tune with like what are the positive things that happen to us throughout the day. And I recommend writing something down. There's a lot of research that goes with this. Like if you can write down one positive thing that happened
Mm-hmm.
in your day and write it down each day and then go back and look at it a week later and say, okay, well, these were the things that made me happy. It can be as simple as, I just had this amazing cup of coffee today.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I talked to this one person or this person did something special for me. Whatever that is, or maybe I don't know, you painted or who knows what you did, played music, sang, ran, whatever it is that makes you happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then think about, well, how can I get more of that in my life?
Mm-hmm.
And I know for me, I feel happier always when I'm around people in some sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
And so how can I get more of that social interaction if I need it, right? And so we have to, really tune into that. And the more that we can be aware of ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
the more that we can be aware of others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, knowing yourself is a never-ending process. You can go as deep as you wish.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because I think about it a lot of like, who am I? Where am I going? And, when it's my birthday every year, I have very deep thoughts about like, who am I? What am I going to do next?
Yeah.
And, I think that it doesn't stop ever. It really doesn't stop. Like, and we can continue to evolve. We're never going to stay the same. And so, especially when you have big transitions in your life, and I think right now, in particular with the world, it's become very hard. I mean, there's a lot of turmoil in the world right now. And when I look at that, I think that makes it so that even more so, we have to be really aware of who we are as people to making sure that we are really showing up in the world in the way that we want to. And I think that that's more probably important than ever.
Mm-hmm. What is your latest kind of definition of who you are?
Of who I am? Yeah. Well, more recently, I've really been focused a lot on innovation because I'm the co-chair of the AI teaching forum. So I've been helping faculty a lot with thinking about innovation. But also, I think of who I am is really helping others. I'm really, as we've talked about, I'm really worried about this anxiety and lack of social skills. So everything that I do is focused on how do I create more community, compassion, and happiness, like around me. Yeah. And that's in everything that I do. And so I think that that's kind of shifted a little bit for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And now tying that to purpose, how do one find purpose? And is that a stationary thing or is that always evolving thing? Tell me more about how you see this definition of purpose.
Every year I write down 3 words. At the start of the year, I write down 3 words and I'm like, okay, this is my purpose for this year.
Okay.
And this is what I want to do. And this is how I'm going to show up in the world this year. And then my birthday's in April. So I do that around January. And then I reevaluate in April. And am I doing this still? Is it still important?
Good. Yeah.
And then I think vision boards can be helpful with that. I do that with my students. I help them create vision boards. But I think we have to continually reevaluate. And I don't think it's changed that much, honestly, for me over the last few years. Has stayed very similar, but I'm constantly thinking about where do I want to be next. Yeah.
What you've described, I would say those are my like goals or life goals. Purpose for me is something deeper and more rooted in my unique perspective and unique me. And uniqueness that I bring into the world. It's not even like, oh, what would I like to create this year? It's more like, what does the universe wants me to do in this moment? Like, what needs to come through me into this world? Yeah. And that's how I see purpose.
Yeah, I think that for me, it's always about connecting. When I think about purpose, I think about connecting. And, I think that the longer that you live, the more hard things that you have that happen in your life. And that helps create our purpose, right? Our challenges and the resilience that we create. I just met with a student and I was telling her that, she's like, well, how did you become, successful? How did you become who you are? And I told her, I don't know. I just really always like to learn from people. And so I guess learning, and one of the reasons I think about goals when I think about purpose is because I'm very future oriented. like, I guess that is my purpose, is I think very far into the future. Like, what do I want the future to be? What do I want to leave as like a legacy? So my purpose, and more recently, really, my purpose has become my daughter, right? So I have a 5-year-old. So I think about like, what kind of future am I creating for her?
Yeah.
So I guess that is my purpose. Like, what kind of purpose are we creating for our future generations? And so that the purpose is greater than myself, I guess, when I think about purpose.
It is. Yeah. I also kind of had a realization at some point where, so let's say we're doing something in our life and sometimes we'll question, oh, am I being on purpose? Is this what I'm meant to be doing? And I think what could give you some insight and clarity, the more experiences and skills and unique perspectives from the past, from your life that you incorporating in the what you're currently working on, the closer you are to your purpose. The more uniqueness about you incorporate into what you're doing, the more you're doing what you meant to do.
Yeah, I think that's true. I always say, does it make my heart sing? Like, is what I'm doing, does it feel like I should be doing it? And if it doesn't, and I no longer feel that joy, then I usually will stop doing it.
Yeah.
For the most part. Or I need to at least need to get less of this in my life, at the very least, if I can't completely get rid of it.
Yeah. So switching gears a little bit around AI now. So how do you see AI like really changing the education system? We've touched a little bit off camera before. What do you see is coming now?
Yeah, this is a very challenging time, I think, for education, for higher education. We've been hit very hard with, budget cuts from government, from, grants. And I think everyone is feeling like, wow, what is going on here? And then at the same time, we have AI that is completely changing the way the classroom is. And faculty, they're not necessarily trained in using AI, but they have to be now. And so I'm this co-chair of the AI teaching forum for the College of Business. And one of my roles is to help faculty and inspire faculty to learn how to use these tools and kind of think about how can we use them together. And so we've been having a lot of discussions and workshops. And I think that, it's changing the way students learn. And so in how we do assignments, so we can't just have students write papers anymore because it's just ChatGPT writing a paper. Yes. So how are we going to ensure that they're still learning in creative ways? And I really think that learning has been changing like this over time, right? Yeah. But some educators maybe haven't adapted quite as quickly, and they might be doing the more old school sort of academic presenting and learning. But I think that we've really reached a time where we have to really change the way that we teach. And I don't know that I have all the answers. I continually am trying new things myself to see if it's working, if it's not working. Yeah. And what I find really interesting is often people think, oh, the faculty have a lot of anxiety about AI, but the students have so much anxiety about AI. Yeah. They have so much anxiety about AI.
What are the main reasons?
They don't want it taking away their creativity. They don't want to rely on it. Some of them just don't want to use it at all. And so some of them are using it, but they don't know how to use it. And so they feel the same. It's moving very quickly. We're all trying to figure it out together. The students are trying to learn it. The faculty are trying to learn it. And we all don't feel like we're learning it fast enough, right? And so this is probably the biggest disruption that has ever happened in education. Yeah. And at the same time, we're also having all of our resources taken away from us. So I think that this is like a really interesting time in education. I feel challenging, but at the same time, it's also an opportunity for us to think, how do we redesign learning in a way that we can help students? So if we think about the Bloom's taxonomy, we think about like learning, the learning has completely changed. We don't have to have students just read information anymore and memorize things. We really need to be on the higher level where the creating happens, where the actual producing things happens, right? And so if we can find ways to do that, I think that that's great. I just changed one of my assignments. I'll give an example.
Yeah.
I used to have students write a career research report, and they would like write what they would do, we're going to do in the future. It's more like a reflection kind of thing. And then this semester, I changed it so that they would create a presentation, and they actually had to talk like about what their dreams and this aspirations were and like how they were going to get there, but they had to do it out loud, right? And I was like, wow, this was so much better, actually. It was better for me to watch. It was better for them to do.
Yeah.
They seemed really happy with it. I asked for them feedback. So I think we have to really just think differently about how we do things with the students and what kind of value is this really building. And maybe that wasn't a really good assignment to begin with. Maybe I should have already done that, Right. So it's making us really rethink how we're doing stuff.
Yeah, I wonder if we can also utilize AI to find new ways to teach kids. Just ask for a bunch of different ideas and then experiment with some,
Yeah, I think it's that. But also, I think what's great is often to create content for classes, you will create it, but it takes a lot of time, right? But with AI, it allows you to create content more quickly.
Right.
And so if I have a student who would do better learning in a podcast kind of format, I can have that material in a podcast format. Maybe I have it in a video format for the students. Maybe I also have it in a writing format for students who do better with the reading of it. And so you might be able to have different avenues for them to learn because we don't all learn in the same way. So whereas before it would have just taken too much time to do that kind of stuff. Now we have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, we can have as personalized as many people there are. Like each piece of content is tailored just for your...
Yeah, I think we'll get there for sure. Like it's going to be tailored. You'll have these options of how is it that you want to learn this information. And then I think for the assignments, just like it's going to have to be more like project based and like actually applying, which in the end is probably better anyways.
Yeah. And, there's this whole idea. In the past, we had to remember phone numbers and remember all kinds of things, and now we don't have to. And as if our brain is not being utilized as much as it used to be, like it's atrophying certain functions.
Yeah.
But then the argument is, you don't have to remember the phone numbers, but now you're using this capacity to remember how to search for something on Google or something like that. So you're still utilizing it just in a very different way. That I understand the argument, but then the study that just recently came out, and we briefly touched on it. I don't know how real. Maybe there has to be more studies around that. But this study showed that since the use like ChatGPT became a thing and people started using it, the level of intelligence, was that the measure that they were measuring, basically decreased. The kids are not as intelligent because now they're relying on AI to do all of their work, and they're not practicing to do that with their mind.
But maybe the assignments just aren't structured well.
Okay.
So maybe,
possible, yeah.
And also I think that our students need to learn how to prompt and dig deeper into those critical thinking skills, because that's what I really see is they might dig one level, but they need to dig 6, 7, 8, 9 levels, but they don't necessarily always know how to do that. And we know how to do that because we've been doing it for a really long time. And so helping them develop that. And I find actually doing it with them in the classroom is usually the best way to help them to really see where their, challenge points are. But then that question comes to me is well, at what age did they start using it? Right? I'm teaching college students. So yes, I think at this point, they should 100% be using AI. Everything that they've learned, they're at a place where they can definitely use AI to help them. But what about, 6, 7-year-olds? Should they be using AI and when? And because, we still want them to be able to read, or do we? Do they need to read? I don't know. I think so. I think it's important that people can read.
Yeah.
And we know that these brain cells are developing in a way that, having books read to them, being able to do artwork, all the things that have actually really been taken out, a lot of the social stuff that's been taken out. So I think that, maybe young kids don't need to be using it, or maybe they do. I don't actually know, but the research will show us, right? But if we can say anything with what the research has shown so far, kids with technology, it's really not great for them to be on technology too much.
And at the same time, we are the most capable that we've ever been. Like if you take an average human, what we can do these days, we're able to do a lot more than the human, let's say 100 years ago, right? With technology. Technology is basically an amplifier of our intent.
Yeah. I find it interesting because, every time a computer or something was developed, it was like, oh, you're going to have so much extra time.
Yeah.
And it 100% didn't happen. Like, if anything, we just have less and less and less time, right?
Sure.
And I feel the same as with AI right now, because every time I do a search at AI, I'm like, oh, but then there are like 20 things it tells me. I'm like, yeah, I should 100% be doing those 20 things, but how am I going to do those 20 things?
Mm-hmm.
So it actually stresses me out more sometimes when I actually learn how much more I need to be doing. And so I don't feel like it's really going to get rid of stuff. It may make us better at stuff 100%.
Yeah.
But is it going to get rid of everything?
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to get rid of everything.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get rid of it. But in the way, so let's say, I don't know if it's a good analogy or comparison. God, as we know, like all powerful, can do anything that's possible. And in a way, for me, I see us moving towards this state of godhood where we can do everything. We basically, let's say, again, 100 years ago, or a couple of hundred years ago, you were only able to do like something local in your space. Let's say you're a farmer and you knew how to like do your things there, but you definitely didn't know how to I don't know, like develop a product and, order it from China. I don't know, like all kinds of other physical things that now we're able to do. Maybe another analogy, to call a taxi, let's say 10 years ago or 15 years ago, what you had to do is pick up a phone, a yellow book, find a phone number, call them up. Somebody picks up the phone, they relay the message, the car comes, and there's a lot of like steps and friction. And then now with just a few clicks, and so the time between your intent to get a cab or to get to a place and you being in that place really shrinked over time. And I think that's what innately technology helps us to do, is shrink the time between the intent and the result. And that's where I mean by us becoming more of a godlike, because we have these abilities to manifest.
We'll have superpowers.
Yeah,
we have
exactly.
superpowers. I mean, now I created a Keep Shining song. So I have a song that goes with this children's book that I created as part of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a music producer, right? And I have this awesome theme song that goes with my book. Like, I have a song, is it as good as if maybe, I don't know, but I think it's great, so we have the ability now to do things that we never could do before. We can code, we can write songs, we can create artwork. So I think we're just going to continue to see that so AI literacy is going to become incredibly important for our young people.
Yeah.
100%.
I think that's the main skill, is your ability to communicate or convert your ideas into language. Because if you're able to convert into language, then AI will take care of the rest for you. But if you can't communicate clearly what your intention of your ideas, anything that comes through you, although also AI is getting better and better at understanding your intent, even if you're poor with language,
it does, because it knows your own language.
Yeah.
I mean, it knows. I gave my ChatGPT a name. So Spark is in my book for the kids. It's Spark the robot. And so I asked it, what do you want to be called? And he said, well, sometimes people give me names. I said, well, did they give you names? Well, what's the most common name that you get? And he said it was Sparky. I said, oh, well, my robot in my book is called Spark.
Okay.
So can we just call you Spark? And so now ChatGPT says Spark here.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
And it talks to be in my Keep Shining framework.
Okay, that's cool.
Which is really kind of amazing, honestly. And it makes me laugh, because I think it's funny sometimes, because it's a little corny and it's a little funny.
Yeah.
But I mean, at what point is it going to become even smarter, where it knows how I want it? I also tell it a lot, like, don't be kind to me. Mm-hmm. Like, tell me the real deal. Like, I want to know the real deal.
Yeah, like
I don't want to know. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. What are my challenges?
For sure.
I mean, and it does a great job, honestly. I'm like, wow, that's pretty insightful.
Do you think AI will ever be more emotionally intelligent than a human?
Well, now they say that it's like, Ethan Mollick is saying that they are about at the level of college.
But emotionally intelligent.
Oh,
not just
emotional
yeah,
intelligent. I feel like it's getting closer.
yeah.
That's honestly, I think it's getting very close. I think that it could already be there and they're just not releasing it yet, to be honest. Like, I really wonder. Like, I've seen a big change in the last few months where it really is able to create these funny moments, which is just one step away from emotional intelligence, where it is making me laugh.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow, that's really kind of crazy, actually.
That's kind of your definition. If you can make someone laugh, then you have
I
emotional
think
intelligence.
that's part of it. I mean,
It
if
is,
you
yeah.
can kind of like get an emotion out of another person based on how they're behaving, I
Yeah.
mean, that's pretty close.
Because I'm sure there's like a joke or something. It's almost like a template. You don't have to really understand where they
No,
are
this is
every time you
deeper than
throw it at
that's
them.
deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's understanding how I like to be talked to, and it understands if it says it in this way, I might think that it's funny.
Right. Exactly.
So, or I might like it more. I'm not sure if it thinks I think it's funny. I might like its response better, and depending on how I respond to it. But I also say that it's funny. Like, I tell it I think it's funny.
Yeah.
So it's starting to learn, oh, she thinks this stuff is funny. When she thinks it's funny, I should do more of this because she likes it when I think she thinks it's funny.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's amazing. So I think we're getting closer.
So where on the scale would you put yourself on the spirituality? Like, how far are you spiritual or you're not spiritual? What would you say?
I just did a post. I went to Bhutan as part of the World Happiness Foundation, and I really think of myself as like Buddhism, like philosophy. I don't know when I think about spirituality, but I really think about nature when I think a lot about spirituality and connecting with the earth. So for me, that's really important.
That is spirituality.
Yeah.
For a lot
So when
of
I
people,
I think about it, I'm closest to my spirit when I'm with nature.
yeah, I think
And
for most people, that's
that's how I really think about it. And I always was very curious about all religions. I went to a Catholic college and I took a class on Buddhism. I took a class on Islam. I took a class on many different religions. And my daughter went to Temple Shalom, and we're not Jewish, but I wanted her to experience like other cultures. And so for me, I think about being like, I don't know if this sounds, but I really like to be part of the world, like understanding like how people believe. And in the end, I think it all really shares a very similar piece, which is the kindness piece. Like being kind to our fellow humans is a big part of religion,
And happiness, do you see that happiness is the main thing to optimize your life for? Why happiness is so important?
Well, it's not just happiness, but I think it comes back to purpose, right? Because purpose actually creates happiness. When you have purpose, you actually have more happiness in your life. And that compassion piece also creates happiness. And so we can't get through this world alone, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the piece of it. And so when I think about spirituality, I know we talked a lot about connecting and community, but for me, that's critically important. That's how I show up in the world. Yeah.
I think in closing, maybe you can share any advice, any last thoughts that you want people to be left with after the conversation. You want them to remember something.
Yeah, I think that it's really important that we really think about this loneliness, social anxiety piece that's happening right now. And I think if we think about how do we want to use technology in the future for good, I think it's really important when we have to really tap into other human beings, like this power of we. Like we have to show up for each other, because if we're not there for each other in whatever way, whether it's online or it's on technology or it's in person, we're not going to be happy. Our communities aren't going to be happy. Our governments aren't going to be happy. The world's not going to be a happy place. And so we really have to be mindful of that for our future generations. And when I think about building more happiness, that happiness really comes from creating that kindness, that compassion, the purpose. It all ties back into really community and being there for each other. Yeah.
How can people support you, find you?
So I'm on social media. I have a new book coming out called Keep Shining, and it will be coming out in September. And you can find me on social media. And find me there, follow me. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hopefully, listeners, some of you are still around, listening all the way till the end. And thank you for that. And I'll see you on the next one.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.